Okay, improvisation comes naturally to children. It involves following inner impulses and moving freely from moment to moment, returning to an innate spark of spontaneity and play and the creative impetus to make genuine contact with oneself and others invites a feeling of soul. I think of soul as an ineffable essence and a timeless source of energy. Contact with soul shapes a sense of meaning and purpose and brings a sense of being part of something larger. In Playing in Reality, Winnicott writes, psychotherapy takes place in the overlap of two areas of playing, that of the patient and that of the therapist. Psychotherapy has to do with two people playing together. The corollary of this is that where playing is not possible, then the work done by the therapist is directed towards bringing the patient from a state of not being able to play into a state of being able to play. So before anything can happen that is creative and engaged, both the therapist and the patient need to be able to play. And to play, the patient needs to feel safe and trust the situation. Jung calls this the analytic vase or vessel, the trusted relationship that invites the unconscious, allows vulnerability, and inspires creativity. Early trauma can inhibit the child's natural ability to dwell in the body. Pressures, expectations, and insults from family and or surrounding culture can suppress a child's natural impetus to explore, engage, to improvise, to play. What Winnicott calls the continuity of being. Children connect to wonder naturally when they are held well enough by an emotionally attuned and responsive caregiver. In that consistently warm enough, not perfect environment, children can seize a moment, improvise, and interact with the world self-consciously. These children develop a core self, a sense of agency, as the parents can well enough buffer frustrations and injuries with tenderness. The archetype of the divine child is an expression of the living imagination. Jung writes, a child always means a beginning, a new attempt at life. So, what do I mean exactly by the living imagination? Images that feel alive with meaning. And I don't mean pictures of things, and I don't mean an image, I mean your image, the one that arises from within you, or an image from outside that moves you. It's not a thing to look at, but an experience to live. It may arise from the body or from nature. It could be music or a sensation, a friend, family member, a beloved. It could be art or an animal or a knowing glance when you feel witnessed. It could be a memory evoked by a smell or a smell that burns into memory. It involves you. It feels alive and has a story. And it's a story larger than what you can intellectually know. If you listen to the story, it has potential to unfold you. Dissolving defenses can feel scary. Aliveness is difficult. And I have found that one of the most compelling challenges in therapy, especially amid unsettling times, is to sustain that contact with yourself. Soul is the immediate moment, what is happening now. The history of our relationships register bodily and enrich or inhibit our ability to be vulnerable. We are born into relationship and are often wounded in relationship and largely heal through relationship. There are transmissions of trauma and gifts, genetic imprints, family struggles and accomplishments, historical roots that move us, and sometimes in mysterious ways. Our tree body has many branches and roots influencing, moving outward and inward, informing and shaping how we move. We are all descendants, and most of us have roots elsewhere. Relational injuries can disturb our ability to be open to others and to life. The psychotherapy relationship itself, through dedicated examination of relational ruptures, when the transference heats up, can bring attention to complexes, those unconscious splinter parts of oneself that sometimes have a life of their own and can even abduct one's life course. So it is a superpower when you can develop a relationship to your complexes. both when you sit with clients and in life. The psychotherapy relationship can gently uncover hidden pockets of potential that have been frozen over by trauma. So, awareness of how my body is moving and how life is moving me has been my biggest resource in clinical work, in my relationships and ordinary moments. And so, this is the root of my passion for this subject of home in the body and active imagination. Many spiritual traditions point to how the body is a portal to the soul and the world's soul. Bodily experience is a way into the imagination, to creativity, and to numinosity, what Jung termed the transcendent function, an innate and creative spirit embedded in the human psyche. Jung, in the Red Book, wrote, "The knowledge of the heart is in no book and is not to be found in the mouth of any teacher, but grows out of you like the green seed from the dark earth." Artists open to the body. Marc Chagall writes, "If I create from the heart, nearly everything works. If from the head, almost nothing." And from Jung, "We should grow like a tree that likewise does not know its laws." And from Hermann Hesse, "Whoever has learned how to listen to trees no longer wants to be a tree. He wants to be nothing except what he is. That is home. That is happiness." How are you guys doing? Okay? Okay. Okay, this is a story I really love. In volume 1 of Jung's letters, a colleague of Jung writes that he was undergoing a psychological crisis accompanied by severe anxiety states. He mentioned that for the last 5 years he had been studying Sanskrit and Indian philosophy. In the colleague's dream, the dreamer finds himself at the foot of a glacier, and on the other side there is a dark forest in which a single star shines with a very bright light. Jung writes to the colleague, "I gather from your description that you are indeed climbing too high. Sanskrit and Indian philosophy really are a bit much. You must turn back to simple things, just as your dream says, to the forest. There is the star. You must go in quest of yourself, and you will find yourself again, only in the simple and forgotten things. Why not go into the forest for a time, literally? Sometimes a tree tells you more than can be read in books." Jung's counsel to listen to the images from the depths of psyche is meaningful. Jung tells his colleague, "Go in quest of yourself, find your star and follow it. Go into the forest." And by forest, I'm imagining it could be any kind of nature, to return to nature and to your body. Jung says, "Go to a tree," because a tree can invite soul and touch the heart, the living body, in a way that intellect often can't. The tree image with its roots hidden below is metaphorical, not literal, not literal. It is to help us feel into what Jung calls the self with the capital S, the whole person, both conscious and unconscious, both known and unknown. In Kabbalah, the roots of the tree are in the heavens above, Ein Sof, beyond this world, while the branches descend into the earth. It is an image of wholeness or holiness. What is above also lives below, and what is below, above. The Jewish mystic or Kabbalist calls this wholeness your inner garden, your divine soul. It's not an actual place, though there is that, but a metaphoric destination, a creative potential. And it's also an experience. Trees embody opposites, and so does the human body. Dancers tend to know this. To go up into the air, you must push down. To balance, the energy goes down into the floor through the feet and reaches upward and stretches out from the core of the body. To expand a muscle, there is also a corresponding contraction. When I witness a tree, I marvel at how grounded and how resilient, how majestic, and vulnerable too. How there are marks on the trunk, and how the knots, hollows, and old wounds, and leaning, twisting, and telltale scars reveal encounters with wind, weather, fires, and animals and bugs. Trees revive memories of childhood and play and being lost in the flow of time. Children love climbing trees, running around them, watching the branches and the animals and birds playing. Nature's beauty can be a bridge to the ageless soul for the estranged patient. Imagining you are a tree is a wonderful way to find embodiment. My local patients tell me about their walks in Tilden, Muir Woods, Redwood Regional Park, Mount Tamalpais, Point Reyes, and more in places with trees. It is monumental how soothing it is to walk among trees. I find that most patients, whatever their histories, have memories of an unencumbered child, and perhaps this is soul. At some time or other, patients tell me about trees, meadows, rivers, and oceans that accompany them through childhood. Okay, so now we're going to do another exercise. So you're going to find a comfortable position to stand comfortably in your room. And if you like privacy, again, you're welcome to hide your image. Check in with yourself through the 4 pathways, noticing your breathing without changing anything, physical sensations, mood, and images, and notice thoughts that are rising as you are doing this exercise. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Bring attention to the soles of your feet. I want you to imagine your treeness. Become a tree. Imagine you are a tree with roots going down from the crown of your head down into the earth. Notice the energy moving down through the soles of your feet into the floor and beneath the floor, into the soft earth below. And feel the energy also moving up through the crown of your head. Stretch your arms out and feel the pull side to side and up and down, the opposite poles in your body. What kind of tree are you? Notice your experience of this tree, your associations and reflections. Did you have a special tree as a child? Maybe you have a place now that you like to go to into the woods. I'm going to be silent for a minute to let you explore your treeness. As you bring your experience to a close, I'm going to give you another minute to draw an impression of your tree or in your experience of the 4 pathways. You can draw and write a poem or prose. I just want you to let your experience find a place on paper, a home outside you. And I want you to come back into the room, transitioning. Okay, so hello, everybody. Since we're a small group, I'm wondering if we don't go into dyads and share together. What do you think? Does that feel okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah, because we're a small group. Why not? So, if you feel comfortable, I'd like you to just share something of your experience of your treeness, of the four pathways, of what we've done so far. We just take just 5 minutes or so just to check in to see how you're doing. To me, that the treeness exercise, it comes from Mary Whitehouse. She was a pioneer in active imagination through movement. She was a dancer first, and then she pioneered using movement and active imagination. And she's the one who came up with the word treeness, and I find it so powerful, a powerful practice to come back to your treeness. So I'm curious about your experience of that, and also the four pathways. Okay, I'll stop talking.
I'll go ahead and do the rooms, Robin, okay?
Oh no, I was saying that maybe we don't go into dyads, but we just do it together.
Oh, I thought you were saying you wanted to go into dyads. I'm so sorry.
No, I was saying since we're a small group, why don't we stay together?
Oh, sure, sure. No worries.
I think people nodded their head. Is that right?
It's no problem.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you meant dyads into small group breakout rooms.
Yeah, I was wanting that, but now that I see the group, I think we can just stay together and share.
Okay.
If you're not shy. If you guys are shy, then we should go into dyads. But if we can share together, I think that would be nice.
I can go.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, what I was thinking was I was visualizing a manzanita tree. And my mind started to go that this tree lives in the liminal. It's cold if you hug it, it's warm if you harvest it to use for fire. Um, and something else, it's a vibrant tree. It's resilient, not afraid of fear, willing to stand out. Um, And that's kind of where my mind is going with it. And then I just also really like that this tree is often on a trail. So it's on the path of many wanderers. So,
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah, I really like this exercise. I there's a path I really like going hiking on the local trails after it's rained, because the moss on the trees goes like the green moss is just spectacular on some of the trees. And so my tree was, in particular, Windy Hill has some really spectacular trees that grow like they almost grow horizontally, like the branches go way out. These big, huge branches go way out. And I don't know if you can see
Oh,
my
nice.
primitive thing, but my thought was, oops, let me and the roots go kind of deep. But my thought was like my tree, one kind of seeks beauty in what otherwise people consider like, um, dreary conditions. So most people don't like to go out in the rain and hike around. It's muddy and sometimes messy and sometimes dangerous, but just like incredible beauty just kind of like sprouts out of nowhere. I also thought like the horizontal kind of reaching out into the universe, as opposed to like most trees try to be the tallest and want to be higher than others. These trees like are reaching out into new areas that maybe others haven't explored to like be green and grow. And so I felt like that's very indicative of kind of my approach in life. So yeah, I really like this exercise.
What a powerful metaphor. I was thinking the vertical, but I haven't the idea of the horizontal is so beautiful. Thank you, Derek.
I can share. I really enjoyed the exercise. I often do tree pose in yoga, so it was a very familiar feeling, and to play around and close your eyes, and it's a really playful exercise. And when we did the kind of visualization part, I was brought to an image of an oak tree that was at my grandfather's house growing up. It was just like this gigantic oak tree in his backyard, and like the family, his house was like the family, epicenter. And so we spent so much time in the backyard with that tree. And it was just really beautiful to come back to that space that I hadn't thought about for quite some time. So it was really lovely.
Thank you.
I can share a little bit. I really like that exercise too, and I was being a tree for a while, and I took my shoes off, and it just brought back all the memories of when you're around trees, the smell of the earth and the air smells different, and when you say anything or hear anything, it sounds different when you're amongst trees. I don't know if you've noticed that, just sounds different. Um, and of course, the air is just amazing. And just words came to mind, being a tree, sort of like protector. These are the words that came to mind: protector, reliable, no agenda, all giving, shade, fruit, beauty, a destination, the air and the earth all came to mind.
Beautiful.
Ooh, great. I feel like I've just been in the woods.
Me too. Thank you. It's so great. It's what we need, right? Is it's so it just is so calming.
Oops.
One
Sorry.
more. We have time for one more share.
I can go.
Okay.
I really like the treeness as well. It's such a good term. I immediately thought of the tree that was in my elementary school. It's a really big one with like air duct. I don't know what it's called. That coming down is very ghostly, grand, lively, scary, but also very friendly and loving. So I really enjoy that, going back to that space.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you for being so receptive, guys. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. There's the tree. Okay, so I want you to bring your attention to the 4 pathways as I return to talking: the sensations, feelings, images, and thoughts. One of the pathways are more easily accessible than the others often. So I invite you to periodically notice your treeness also and doodle. Okay. Many religious traditions have their own exquisite versions of embodied presence. For example, Taoism has a concept of wu wei, letting things happen. In Kabbalah, the mystical tradition from the Jewish tree, there are 4 roots or levels of soul, and each beautifully correspond to Jung's 4 functions. So there's the soul of the body, which is nephesh in Hebrew, action on earth, and it correlates with Jung's sensation function. The soul of the emotional body is ruach in Hebrew, the wind, the dance with emotions as they arise and activate awe, and it correlates with Jung's feeling function. The soul of the contemplative body, neshima in Hebrew, the breath with awareness and reflection, correlates with Jung's thinking function. And the soul of the living imagination, the essence of the body, chaya in Hebrew, the spirit transcending words in direct communion with the divine, correlates with Jung's intuitive function. These pathways to self-awareness, inroads to the present moment, the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the imaginal, are bridges to soul and to the complexes, those split off parts of ourselves that are in shadow and that can inhibit creativity. And we can become more aware through these different channels of experience. These pathways are not separate, but dance together, sometimes in a cacophony, clashing between feeling and thinking, for example, or physical needs and emotional wishes. It's useful to slow down and be curious about where you are, what is moving you, and how you are feeling moved. In my view, this is the most important compass in the psychotherapy office. So now I'm going to review the pathways with clinical examples. Okay, the physical body, the root nephesh, the body in action, Jung's sensation function. In Exodus, God says to Moses, "Take your shoes off your feet, because the place upon which you stand is holy." To ground in the body, it is helpful to take off the shoes and to sense the feet. To invite this symbolically is to invite coming down out of the head, down into the floor. I might ask a patient, "What is happening inside?" Or, "What do you sense in your body as you share this with me?" Or, "Speak to me from your sore ankle, from your headache, from the tightness in your chest." It helps to notice your breath. The breath is a rhythm of receiving and giving. When we exhale, we can speak, and we are taking up space and giving. Inhaling is moving into oneself, making space to receive. Thus the expression, "take a breath." Pause, wait, listen, inhale. When I notice my patient is breathing shallowly or seems to be holding their breath, I might lean back and notice my own breathing. The patient may mirror my breathing as the conversation continues. Or I notice the patient and I are sitting the same way, and that makes me smile. There are many expressions and gestures from moment to moment that defy words, that speak from the animal body and feels honest and enlivening. A grin, a blink, a long pause, mutuality in a sigh, a slight shift, or a spontaneous tilt of the head to make a special point. Body language can indicate confusion or reticence or a rupture with looking away or rigidity or turned down mouth. The voice can be stern or soft. Words can be incongruent with energy or posture. I go with the body. The body is truth. So here's a small example. Jill has a successful vocation, but she is under constant pressure. During sessions, her fingers dance on her lap. She bites her nails, picks her cuticles, and squeezes her wrists. Her hands tell one story, while her professional demeanor tells another. Her body tells an emotional story, non-verbally. During work meetings, above the table, Jill looks calm. She confides. Hidden under the table, she's blooding her cuticles. I imagine soaking her fingers in warm water. Jill's hands are a bridge to an anxious child. They threaten her sense of competence. Angry at her hands, she says she wants to cut them off. Let them talk, I say. Let's listen and wonder about their story. To bring home exiled parts of herself, she confronts her vulnerability. integrating her finger dancing. We discover the fingers carry her deep desire to slow down. Embodied memories of a beach home her family used to visit in the summers helps us to summon her little girl spirit. As an adult, slowing down feels scary. The soul work begins to linger on embodied images of playfulness as a child, as Jill shares memories of baking with her grandmother, building sandcastles, and building a tree fort with her older brother. The emotional body, the soul ruach, the wind dancing with feelings, Jung's feeling function. The emotions can be a bridge between sensing and thinking, between body and spirit. So let's look at the innate archetypal affects: sorrow, fear, anger, contempt, shame, startle, joy, and interest. Joan Shotaro, in her book Dance Therapy and Depth Psychology, The Moving Imagination, writes, the somatic aspect is made up of bodily innervations and expressive physical action. The psychic aspect is made up of images and ideas. In psychopathology, the two realms tend to split. By contrast, a naturally felt emotion involves a dialectical relationship, a union of body and psyche. Sadness is related to loss. Fear is related to the unknown. Anger is related to boundaries and threats to freedom. Contempt and shame are relational. Joan once relayed to me that contempt and shame are two sides of the same coin. They are affects spurred by rejection. Startle is activated by the unexpected, and on a continuum from startle to shock, joy loves the familiar, and interest invites the novel. The emotions are a life compass. They help us to negotiate the vicissitudes of life. The primary affects have countless variations, feeling toned complexes that are just that, complex. But these primary emotions are useful as a compass. Emotions have archetypal gestures and muscular organizations. This is a principle of dance movement therapy and somatic psychology. For example, fear freezes the body. Think of deer in headlights. Anger is rigid and linear. Sadness tends to be soft, heavy, and undulating. Joy is buoyant, while interest is focused. Sometimes emotion can be felt in various body places, like sorrow caught in the throat, or heaviness in the chest, or anger in a snarl or the fists, or joy as it leaps into the air. One can hold emotion in the body through sensation or pain without feeling it, or even having words to talk about it. Ruth, in her mid-40s, had dark feelings of self-worthlessness. Her husband had an affair and she felt unlovable. Self-hate focused on her fat thighs, ugly hair, blemishes on her skin, and her slumped posture. Listening to the barrage of self-criticism, I tried to relax my body and soften my eyes. I do not argue. I make space for the sorrow. It's not in the head, it's in the heart. Never argue with the heart. So I ask her, where does it hurt? In my chest, it's pressure. What does the pressure say? Are there words? I feel hopeless. Is there an image? I'm alone. I don't know. I feel like I'm all alone. Even though I'm here, there is a part of you all alone. She nods, seems to drop into the chair. We make eye contact, and then she looks out the window. I ask her, how does it feel to share this with me? I'm afraid you'll be disgusted. I look disgusting. The Kleenex is on her lap. I hand her a heavy blanket because I see she wants to hide. She lifts the blanket to her chin, and I lower my gaze. I sense her despair speaking. Is it okay to feel this way? Can I cry? Can I be hurt? Can I feel inconsolable? And will you still be here? Will I still be here? In the safety of our relationship, feelings break through, defensive structures can relax, and an archetypal core, a vulnerable child, finds home in the body. How are we doing?
Awesome.
Okay. All right. I'm I'm going to the mental contemplative body now. The root of the soul root of Neshama, spirit and awareness. So this is Medusa. We can find in the myth of Medusa the emotions turned to stone by an inner tyrant, from an internalized outer oppressor, a trauma figure. Instead of reflection, there is a verbal tyrant, criticizing, putting down, turning vulnerability to stone. By using meaningful reflection, the therapist can invite feelings. When early trauma has disrupted a person's sense of safety, they often develop protective inner structures, what Donald Kalsha describes as the archetypal self-care system. These defenses can be fierce and they can block access to joy. In the myth, Perseus, shield of reflection, holds Medusa's cold stare so that he can slay her. Reflection can be an interruption of bodied experience, but can also be a midwife into insight. For example, a patient shares how overwhelmed she feels. It's so easy to get caught up in the content. I stop myself and notice my own overwhelm, the immediacy of our dance and her vulnerability. Medusa tells her she's not enough and will never get it right, an echo of her father. She is certain I am judging. She feels small. We linger there in her experience. I say, it seems that you are feeling like a child who needs help but won't ever get any help. Together we stay with the felt sense of that vulnerability, not to fix it, but to accompany her where she wasn't accompanied. The imaginal body, the soul root of Kaya, the living essence. One of my patients, while talking about his abusive father, suddenly stopped mid-sentence. We listened to the sounds. Sounds are also images of a child crying in the waiting room. The cries went on and on. My patient and I listened together to the music of protest and grief. As the wailing trailed away, my patient covered his eyes. His body trembled and he wept, as if a long-held dam collapsed. Soul moments can happen through synchronicity and uncannily penetrate walls. Dreams can also feel like a gift from the heavens. When a patient's daughter was hospitalized after a serious accident, my patient dreamed of a white horse with wings flying through the window of the hospital room and gently nudging and caressing her daughter. My patient's anxiety lifted. Because of the time, I'm just thinking I should skip over this, but I want to share that the trauma in shadow is petrified experience. It hides in the body. And often it's not words, but the body. Nonverbal cues via physical, imaginal, and emotional pathways that can bridge psyche and soma. The somatic unconscious comes alive in the charge of the moment. So much information is held bodily, and as Martha Graham famously said, the body does not lie. I like to share the parable of the rainmaker whenever I teach about embodiment. It's a story Jung told often when he spoke publicly. The rainmaker of Cao Chao was a Chinese sage who was called to a province suffering drought. When he arrived, he did nothing. No rituals, no prayers, only withdrew into a small cottage outside the village for 3 days. On the 4th day, the rain came. Richard Wilhelm was impressed. When he asked the old man how he made it rain, the old man said, I didn't make it rain. I only restored myself to harmony with the Tao. When I was in balance, the world was in balance, and the rain came of itself. A similar wisdom lives in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Kings during a long drought. The prophet Elijah withdraws into solitude and prayer. Later on Mount Carmel, he aligns himself again through 7 repeated prayers until a small cloud appears, no bigger than a man's hand, and the long-awaited rain begins to fall. Like the rainmaker, Elijah does not force it. He withdraws, attunes, waits, and the world comes back into focus. There's also an inversion of this teaching in the Torah. Moses strikes the rock. When the Israelites cried out for water in the desert, God instructed Moses to speak to the rock. Instead, in anger, Moses strikes it twice. Water comes, but it's at a cost. In forcing what should have been allowed to flow, Moses lost his attunement to the divine. He achieved results, but not harmony. When we push, when we impose, rather than listen, something in the soul and in the world becomes inaccessible. Another example is the rain dances of the Hopi, Zuni, and Navajo peoples. Rain is invited through a right relationship with the living cosmos, through movement, dress, rhythm, sounds, and formation. Rain is actually embodied. In my own movement practice of contact improvisation, dancing in community becomes a kind of rainmaking. Retreat into the body, into movement, flow, and connection. Similarly, when I paint, I let the paint talk through my hands and my body. Even the most experienced psychotherapist, Jung writes, will discover again and again that he is caught up in a bond, a combination resting on mutual unconsciousness. So I keep returning to the same theme, and it's very simple. Finding a quiet place inside is the soul of psychotherapy. Each psychotherapy dyad is unique, and so we are using our body as a compass to be in relationship with that particular person who's in front of us. Psychotherapy and analysis are as varied as are human individuals, Jung writes. And in The Secret of the Golden Flower, he writes, consciousness is forever interfering, helping, correcting, and negating, and never leaving the simple growth of the psychic processes in peace. And in my chapter in The Spiritual Psyche and Psychotherapy, edited by Helen Marlowe and Willow Pearson, I write, like a tree planted in the earth, soul is a numinous inner seed with the potential to flower over the course of one's life. Soul is a bridge to the world soul, the primordial floor of being. Soul is what transcends words when you witness a sunset. Soul is how one is moved to garden to see nature bloom. Jung writes that therapists must be guided by the patient's own irrationalities. Here we must follow nature as a guide. And what the doctor then does is less a question of treatment than of developing the creative possibilities latent in the patient themselves. I painted a series called On a Path. The series was first inspired 35 years ago by the painter Camille Pissarro. It felt mysterious why this particular painting moved me. The image pulled me in. It felt like home. Recent iterations evolved beyond Pissarro's image. The series led me to write a paper recently that I think Helen shared with you, published in the Jung Journal. My unconscious was up to something, but meaning unfolded over decades. Through the brush, something astonishing opens up. The pond becomes a lake, becomes a river, a wide stream, and then its own path. The viewer would no longer find Pissarro in the series. It's my work now, Robin's work. And then something surprising happens. I realize I am now painting the creek from my childhood. That's from the article. I just read that. Sometimes what feels engaging seems dumb to the ego. What compelled me to imitate Pissarro's romantic image of a woman on a path? Often I would think, this isn't special, it's a waste of time. But it felt special. Jung was called to play with building blocks, and he had judgment about it. He was an analytical guy, but his energy kept going to building, to playing. Jung wrote in his autobiography, MDR, that there was nothing to do but follow the life of his psyche. What surfaced was more of Jung's boyhood memories, his fascination with using blocks and later stones to build houses and castles and other structures. He writes, to my astonishment, this memory was accompanied by a good deal of emotion. Aha, I said to myself, there is still life in these things. The small boy is still around and possesses a creative life which I lack. But how do I make my way to it? It led him to discover the method of active imagination, and his willingness to follow his creative unconscious formed the Red Book and became the creative force behind all of his subsequent theories. We all have personal examples of following inner impulses that feel right before meaning, before words. It's a creative leap of faith to engage with or express something or create something that feels meaningful but not necessarily productive or immediately gratifying. And that happens in the psychotherapy relationship, to trust what's emerging, what's coming forward. The tensions between the conscious attitude and the impersonal unconscious invite the transcendent function, a path that leads to the potential wholeness or fruitfulness of the individual, transcendent of the personality. I liken this to the yellow brick road. It's a golden liminal state of becoming in the act of opening to the unknown. As Jung writes, the creative urge lives and grows like a tree in the earth from which it draws its nourishment. So there's 2 steps I said before to active imagination: opening to the unconscious, and 2, relating to the contents that emerge. There's 4 steps, according to von Franz. She suggests there are 4 steps, and I like that a lot. It's all more drawn out: opening to the unconscious, then reacting, interacting with it, and we did that in that tree exercise that you just had, and then giving it form: painting, dancing, drawing, writing, sand play. And then the 4th is actually living it. These 4 steps also happen within the psychotherapy hour. The psychotherapy place itself is a sacred retreat, a quiet place, like the rainmaker's hut. The therapist and patient may be quiet and still, and other times active. It's a dance. There's labor, and the labor sometimes bears creative potential. It may birth an image or an idea or an intuition or a synchronicity. There are 2 people, each with an unconscious. In volume 6 of his collective works, Jung depicts the unconscious to unconscious relationship between the therapist and client in a series of 10 woodcuts. Jung tried to illustrate through these woodcuts the unconscious to unconscious alchemical bath. So we've explored active imagination as both a method and an analytic attitude, to be open to the unconscious and relate to what emerges in clinical work and to everyday life. We have the image of the rainmaker, the tree, the archetypal tree of life with its roots in heavens. We have the 4 pathways, which are also linked to Jung's 4 functions and Kabbalah's 4 soul levels: physical, emotional, intellectual, and intuitive pathways. We have psychoanalytic concepts that acknowledge nonverbal, unconscious to unconscious communications that, while under the radar, can be felt somatically. And then there's trauma. Patients tell me about difficulties sleeping, eating, socializing. They tell me about panic attacks, nightmares, overstretching, underdoing, not knowing what to do. There's really trauma in the field right now, and I just don't want to end without saying something about that, because drama is held in the body and often does not have words. In her book, Victims of Cruelty, Mariana Ekberg, one of my first teachers, wrote, there is a freezing and immobilization of the diaphragm, making it difficult to inhale fully, but even more important, it's impossible to exhale fully. Working directly with the body can calm the nervous system. Exhaling fully, even more than you think you want to, feeling the feet on the ground, wiggling the toes, imagining a safe place like a tree, noticing what the body does naturally, how the breathing slows and the energy moves down, how synchronized breathing or the calm voice and bodied presence of the therapist can be a nonverbal experience of accompaniment. This makes it possible to be present, to listen to what is happening inside with curiosity, even when there is anguish, even when there is fear. The story of Chiron expresses this beautifully. The centaur, half man, half animal, is symbolic of the wounded healer. Chiron is poisoned by Hercules' arrow with an incurable wound. Human suffering is not curable, but it is relatable and can be transformed into beauty and soulful meaning. Like the Leonard Cohen song, Ring the Bells, It Still Can Ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So I'm going to go to, I was going to talk about two myths, but I want to leave time. The two myths are Persephone and Inanna, and they're both descent myths. And I encourage you to look at them because I think people come to therapy because they've been abducted. And Persephone is a myth about being abducted, innocently dancing in the garden, and she's pulled down by her feet by the god of the underworld, Hades, and her mother is just struck with grief. She eventually gets let go by Hades because of Demeter's insistence, and she is a goddess that goes up and down. She is a wonderful metaphor for what we do, which is working with descent and return. And that's the whole motif, descent and return. It's good, it's helpful to remember that it's a motif. It's an archetypal motif. And Inanna actually chooses to go down. But she thinks she's going to fix the problem and conquer the queen of the underworld. Rishka goals, the queen of the underworld. Patients sometimes come to therapy and say, I'm going to conquer this problem. And actually, the unconscious sometimes has other things in store. There's a kind of vulnerability in the story of Inanna. She really has to learn about humility. To go down to meet her sister, she's got to go through 8 gates, and by the 8th grade, each gate, she's got to take off a piece of her adornment, her persona. Every gate, she takes off another piece of her jewelry or her clothes until she's naked when she's down there. And her only way back up is to surrender to her sister, not to conquer her. So that's another powerful metaphor for what we do in clinical work. I think that, let's see. Kabbalah comes from the root Kabbalah, which means receiving. Where are you? Where are you is a really good question to ask as you're sitting with people. And Rumi, let silence take you to the core. And Jung, my soul, where are you? Do you hear me? I speak, I call you. Are you there? Home in the body and the living imagination is a way of being. It involves listening to what wants to happen, Wu Wei, or non-doing in Taoism, and receptivity in Kabbalah, and the first step to Jung's active imagination. Listening to soul is a creative approach. Jung wrote to his colleagues, why not go into the forest for a time, literally? Sometimes a tree tells you more than can be read in books. The imagination is like a star in the night sky, shining within each of us. When we can remember and find a safe place, perhaps in psychotherapy, to listen. Okay, guys, I wanted to leave some time. We have 10 minutes for questions and discussions. But first, I just want to go back to the noticing of the four pathways after receiving so much information from me, and notice how you're doing inside. So why don't you take a moment to close your eyes and just check in. How's your body doing? Notice your breathing without changing anything, and your pulsation. Bring your attention down to your feet. I like to wiggle my toes. And notice if there's any difference between how you're experiencing your body now than when we first started the time together. Notice your mood. Notice images or memories and reflections. And why don't you just take a moment to jot down some things about your experience of my offering. Just let yourself put it on paper. Okay. So we have a few minutes here and I'm all yours. You can ask me a question or reflect on how the experience was for you, whatever you like.
I'll go first. When you were showing all the trees, kind of reminds me of home, the Philippines, where I live, full of trees, fresh, everything is fresh air. You don't need no aircon or anything like that or AC. And then when you show the branches, the dark one, that reminds me of the big fire that we have in our community at that time. So it kind of like reminds me the good times, but then and this happened probably like 20 years ago. And family, was inside and they were never saved, and there's a baby, and it was just a tragic in our little community at the time. So, but yeah, those reminded me of the
Those
pictures.
opposites, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And time travel.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you, Etta.
When
Just
oh,
you can go, Laura.
sure, thanks. When we did the exercise where we were imagining of being a tree, I found it really powerful because I the first image I had was of like the branches like hands reaching up and a sense of freedom and a bird in the tree like flying off and just this really big sense of freedom, and then like my feet like roots down into the ground. And then I kept having these like moments of anxiety and worry and thinking, am I doing this right? Is this good enough? And but for like a moment, I connected to something in me, which I haven't connected to for a while, which kind of gets overshadowed by anxiety and just like the busyness and stress of everyday life. And it reminded me of like moments in my life where I've connected to that and felt this sort of like potential in me And something that I found this on the art therapy course in the summer. Like I connected a part of me that with the busyness of life, you don't have time to connect to. And it just reminded me of how important it is to have something like this, a practice like this, whatever it is, whether it's art or dance or whatever it is that helps you just to kind of stop and connect to your soul and what's inside you. It, it's so easy to like forget about that. Like I'm not a religious person. I don't really have a religious practice. So I used to do yoga, but I don't anymore. And yeah, it was just, I found it really profound. And it was only literally a few seconds, but it reminded me of a feeling and of how when you slow down, you can find something in you that you maybe didn't know was there or that you had lost or yeah.
And that's your spark to offer to the world. That's you, your special spark. So, and also what you're describing is what we hope to create in the psychotherapy relationship is that accompaniment that allows or helps with the client being able to do what you did in that exercise,
Hmm.
to feel that. I think of it as soul, but it's something of an essence inside.
Yeah, that's a really good word for it, essence.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Thank you, Laura.
thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you a lot. I'm not going to get into the lore of my life, but February is not an easy month for me. And so when I was reflecting, I simply just wrote, I'm going to be lost for a while. But thank you for bringing the tree metaphor. My mind was so blocked and I couldn't think of that. And it was a very subtle reminder, and trees are very important to me. So thank you for bringing that up. And um,
You're very welcome.
thanks.
You're very welcome. This is a kind of the rainmaker's hut is like a sanctuary to find that quiet place, and a tree is one of those avenues. It's not the only one, but it's very gratifying for me that that exercise opens something up. That's wonderful.
I might quickly add, for those of you that are not as familiar with Jung's works, he has, as part of his collected works, something called the philosophical tree that gets into more tree symbolism than you might ever want or need to know, but it's just beautiful. And so for tree lovers, and myself included, it can transport you into opening all kinds of levels of consciousness. So it's part of his collected works.
I just wanted to say thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation and also the sharing. Like, I love when we as a group or a cohort get to share. It's so wonderful to hear how everybody's kind of taking in all of these practices. And I think my takeaway, or one of the many, is that it's just really cool to see how like all different cultures and backgrounds, religions, like spirituality, like we're maybe saying something in a different language or, using different words, but that we're really saying the same thing and we're, all these different approaches. I don't know, I kind of look at like a big circle and we're all kind of getting to the core of like the soul or whatever it is. And so I think it's just really beautiful to always hear other perspectives and yeah. So thank you.
Good. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know it's 8 o'clock. I want to respect everyone's time, including Robin's time. Anyone want to make a final quick comment or all right. All right. Well, thank you, Robin, for this very soulful and embodied presentation. We just are so grateful for you sharing your expertise and your wisdom and your heart, your embodiment with all of us. So it's been a beautiful evening. I can imagine we all need to feel at home and reconnect with our body. And thank you for this experience, and thank you for all you taught and brought
Thank
to
you,
us
Ellen.
tonight.
It was a pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you for your receptivity, your patience with you really received a lot tonight after a long day. My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Bye-bye.
on that note, thank you again, and thank you all for attending. And thank you for your attention and receptivity, like Robin said. So, okay, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a
Thank you. Bye-bye.
wonderful evening. Okay.